have here? There we are. First place locks, by the way. So you've got a regurg on the shirt. I've got a Sherman College of Chiropractic unicorns. Did some research on the unicorns, by the way. They're not actually unicorns. Now they are the Pride. They changed their name, I think, 20 years ago. I don't remember what it said, but it's been a while. And they changed their name. So now they are the Sherman Pride. I thought it was kind of funny. Spartanburg, South Carolina. So I was repping the home state here. But on the when I was doing the research, it said they're in Boiling Springs, South Carolina, which I didn't know there was such a thing. I thought there was Boiling Springs, North Carolina. But so Spartanburg, Boiling Springs, I'm repping the Sherman College of Chiropractic unicorns / Pride. Casey has a regurg on his shirt. My regurges, I had Slogo last week. I've worn that 3 or 4 times.
Well, it's funny you say Bowling Springs real quick. There, a college roommate of ours, of Locks, and I actually was from there. So Bowling Springs High School and all. There is also Bowling Springs, North Carolina. So they're both right, pretty close to each other.
Bowling Springs.
Bowling Springs, yes, sir.
Is that how you say it?
Yes, sir.
Well, I learned something. I learned it is not Tuesday. And I learned how to say Bowling Springs. All right. Oh, I meant to tell you before I forget.
Hi, Kevron.
Hey, Kevron. I've been reading. I got the Wandering Ravines Between Each Step on Monday, I believe is when I got it. Started reading it immediately. Now, I'm on chapter 3, I think. They're 500 kilometers into the hike, I believe. It brought back, I have to say this, it brought back a lot of memories of the Appalachian Trail. I don't have a lot because I only did about 50 miles, right? But it brought back a lot of memories. And of course, Patrice is doing the narrative here. And, her feet hurt, check. And talked about being exhausted on that first night. And that's the thing that reminded me of, I think I told this story before, that we got into the camp on the first night, set up the tent, had something to eat. And so I said, well, let me lay down and relax. And my roommate, my Clemson roommate, who I was hiking with, said, well, let's look at the map and see where we're going to go tomorrow. We're going to stop. And he had all this stuff planned. He's all fired up. And he said he turned over like 30 seconds later to say something to me, and I was snoring. So, so Patrice, I feel your pain figuratively and literally. But one other thing that stuck with me is it made me long for something that Justin and Patrice mentioned that was one of their life goals, a life less ordinary, right? Not getting up at whatever time and going into the office when we used to go into the office, and doing those routine things in traffic and everything. And, sometimes I think about that. I got a 14-year-old kid. That's not going to happen for me. And I've accepted that. And I love my son. I wouldn't trade it for the world right now. But one of the things she said that I try and impart to my son is that it looks good. It looks perfect. It looks like a lot of fun, but there's a cost to be paid for that life too, And she wrote about that in the book in the first 50 or so pages. And it's just really important that people realize that whatever it is, there's a cost, right? You see a guy who is a superstar baseball player, like my friend in high school, number 1 draft pick. But there's a cost to that. When we were out driving around drinking beer, back when that wasn't a horrible thing to do, we were back driving around drinking beer. That guy is pitching, right? Is throwing balls every time, everywhere, against everything he could. And the other thing is his dad never told him he had a good game. No, he'd throw a no-hitter, and it was, well, you didn't, you walked 2 guys. Throw a perfect game. Well, you went to 3 balls on 4 guys, whatever it was. I'm just saying there's a cost to that life, and I appreciate Patrice sharing that there's a cost, right? You read a story and you think, man, this is great. What a life. They're out there living free and doing what they want, but there is a cost, and their cost is, moving frequently, finding jobs and having to find job after job after job. So Patrice, I'm only on page 50-ish, 60-ish. But it's a great story. Thank you for sharing. And I see her down in the comments, and let me pull out her or him. Yes. Yes, I got the message. I got the message.
Well, it's funny. I did get a text from Patrice, and she didn't put two and two together when you ordered it. So she said to make sure, and I'm going to do it here live, to make sure you know that your message on the inside of the cover would have been personalized a little better had she put two and two together. So she may put another autograph in the mail for you, and it'll take the 35 days or so that it took to get us our books. But I got mine on Monday too.
There's the message she sent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, whoops, wrong. There we go.
That's
So,
their thing. Happy trails, happy adventures. That's what they do. So, yeah, really good story so far. I'm even less than you are, but I'm in it, and I'm ready to go. I'm excited about it. I love them as people. They do live a life less ordinary. That is a favorite song of a favorite band of theirs that they've kind of taken as their mantra, and it's cool. Some people need the white picket fence, and other people have the capability and the dream and the desire to say, you know what, we did what we wanted. We did what we had to do for 10, 15 years. Now we're going to go do what we want to do. So God bless them. I love them. They know that. And I can't wait to finish this thing.
Yeah. Before we get away from this, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to share my screen since it's, 2020, it seems like the thing to do, right?
WanderingLevines.com.
Yeah. WanderingLevines.com. Highly recommended. I'm on about page 50 or so. Patrice, I felt your pain. And that's the other thing I thought I would share is that it reminded me of my time on the Appalachian Trail. I only went 50 or so miles, but they went north to south, Patrice and Justin. I left south going north. So we actually hiked the same trail. Now it's only 50 miles out of 2,181, but those are details, right?
You did 51 more miles than I've done.
A lot of fun, but a lot of work. So, and Patrice, let us know in the comments. In the book, it said, or on the, I think the back cover, that you had hiked 6,000 miles, I think, in your quote career. Let us know where you're at now. Throw it in the comments. So we can play along and see how far you've gone.
Yes, Nelson, check your mail. It's probably there or will be any day now. I thought I was the last one, but you probably are.
All right. Wandering Levines. Hey, I want to give a quick 2-second update on Feed of Veterans. I put the check in the mail on Tuesday. They're kind of closed up for COVID, and as you can imagine, a lot of them are older folks, and so limit the contact. Put a check in the mail with a note. So thank you very much, JJ from the Chop and Beef, Nelson Wilhite, Brandon Rink, everybody who contributed. Over $200 went to Feed the Veterans at the post here in Kyle, Texas. So thank you very much, everyone who contributed. All right. Our guest hasn't arrived yet, but so I'm going to rant, Casey.
Best part of the show.
I'll stop my rants when Dan Hope shows up. But how long was that game Saturday? Clemson and Pittsburgh. I think the first quarter was like an hour and a half, right? Hour and a half or so.
Yeah, the first half was 2 hours.
Wow, it was just incredibly long with all the reviews and the reviews of reviews, which they did again. And Patrice tells us she's around 6,000 miles total. So cool. Well, keep us updated as we go along. We're on week 26 here, and it's Wednesday, by the way. So the game took forever. There were a lot of reviews. They brought in a retired referee, Bill Lamagnier, to tell us that Trevor Lawrence, despite getting hit in the head and saying he did lead with the helmet, that it wasn't targeting. So I can't even figure out what's targeting and what's not targeting. Every year I think I know it, and then they show a play, and the old guy in Poughkeepsie, New York or wherever calling in says, no, that's not targeting, or it is, or it isn't. Who knows? But it seemed like to me they reviewed plays they shouldn't have reviewed, and they didn't review plays they should have reviewed, and they don't know what targeting is. It's going on too long. They need to, and Sean McDonough called it out during the game, right? He finally just laid the law down saying, hey, the ACC wants us to hurry out of commercials, and yet we spend, as my favorite saying is, we spend 3 minutes figuring out if it's 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 6.5. There has to be a limit to it. They have to change the rule. They have to do something, because even an older guy like me who wants to get everything right is sick and tired of a play a 3-minute review, 2 plays, a 1-minute review. What is going on? What can they do to fix this?
I don't know, but I thought it was funny that McDonough said exactly what you've been saying for a long time. That maybe we just go back to what it used to be, and it's just human error is human error. I think we've longed too much now. We've gone so far one way with getting everything right down to the inches, like you say, that it's just getting exhausting. And I'm really happy that actually my favorite announcer, Sean McDonough, my favorite play-by-play guy of any level, any sport, called it out because it needed to be said. And there was a little kickback that I saw on social media, but who's going to say anything? You and I talking on this show with 1,000+ listeners, well, they're going to hear our rants every week. But at the same time, thank God somebody with some clout is just like, good night, Irene, man. Something's just got to be done. And I'm all for getting it right, but why does it take 3.5 hours? Those guys are getting trigger happy upstairs. There's some things that need, like you said, there's some things that need to be reviewed. There were some things in the game that's like, why isn't there any review there? Well, shouldn't there be a review there? And there wasn't. And then, like you said, 3rd and 6, they're getting a review. And you're like, it's frustrating because the games go on forever. We have a 7:30 game this week for Clemson. What time's that going to get over here in New Jersey? It's going to be midnight.
Yeah. One of the things McDonough also said, or I don't remember if it's him or Lemonier or who, it's all confusing and I start shutting it out after a while, is that they've gotten away from what the intent of the original rule was, right? Clear and obvious, big plays, maybe touchdowns. I don't know. Now it's every play is reviewed. And we don't need that. I mean, you might as well have robots out there, but we need. And I get it. I'd be the first one to complain if Clemson got jobbed by a call that wasn't reviewed. I understand that. But it worked for 140 years or whatever. Was it perfect? No. And but you should review the big plays and not every play. It's becoming untenable for me. Now I'm an old dude again, so maybe that's got something to do with it. But it really, really is frustrating.
Well, I want to just talk real quick about the targeting thing.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, it's the worst rule, right? It's not the worst rule for safety. It's a great rule for safety, but it's the worst rule with the ejection. And somebody said to me the other day on a text, and I forget who it was, and I apologize to that person, but it really should be, and I've heard this more than once, first time, 15 yards. It's like the unsportsmanlikes, right? You get one for free, basically, for 15 yards, and then the second one, you're done. Why isn't that the same thing? I know some of these hits are dangerous. That hit on Trevor the other day wasn't dangerous. It just happened to be helmet to helmet, which, to the letter of the rule, is ejectable. Unfortunately, that poor kid shouldn't have been ejected. And yes, that's for my team, right? My favorite team, my school, my alma mater, got the benefit of 15 yards, and I still don't like it because the kid didn't deserve to be kicked out of the game for, like Lemonier said, even though he said it shouldn't be targeting, he did have his head up. He was in a tackling position, but it was helmet to helmet. So I'm all about 15 yards. I'm great player safety. God bless him, please. I don't want any brain issues, but it should definitely not be ejectable for anybody. Flagrant targeting, like Nelson just commented, 100%. And I think there's a way to tell that, right? I think good officials that we had this past weekend, I thought they were fine, calling the game. They were fine. They should know, that's it. It's become a huge judgment call now instead of common sense. And we really need more common sense in this game and then revert it back to the reviews as well.
No doubt. And speaking of common sense, Casey, Dan Hope has joined us. Dan Hope from 11warriors.com. Dan, how's it going tonight?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing good. You got a game play this weekend, or what's the news? Been looking
let's hope so. I mean, right now it looks like things are on track. Ohio State has been back at practice for the last 2 days, so that's good news. Obviously it's 2020, as we learned. You guys learned it with Clemson. I mean, it can come on Saturday morning. I learned it last week on Friday night. Nothing is guaranteed until the players are on the field actually playing a game this year. But
We like to call it getting Seminoled. That's what I just made that up. Dan Hope works for 11warriors.com, Ohio State, a website, but you may know Dan from his time at the Orange and White, working with Brandon Rink. I told Brandon that you were coming on and told him to please heckle you in the comments. Now, he said he was busy tonight, but he would try and work in a heckle or two. So we'll see if we can pick that up for you. I want to know, it's been a lot of talk about Ohio State maybe not qualifying for the Big Ten championship game, maybe not having enough games to be considered for the playoff. I want to know, what is the mood, first of all, with the team, around the team, and how do they feel about that? But also the fans. Ohio State's fans are not the shyest in the world about expressing themselves. And I looked at the site today, by the way, looked at your story, and they're not impressed with Texas A&M, let me say. So what is the mood around the team and around the fan base regarding, the possibility that the team may not make the championship game or the playoffs despite being undefeated?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really heard a lot from the team. They've kind of shut down all media stuff since last week just because of what they're going through. So we haven't really heard a lot of comments from them regarding, what could happen in that case. I think certainly for, the coaches especially, I think they're trying to keep the team focused on we need to just win. We need to just control what we control, play the games we play, and then see what happens, because there's only so much Ohio State can do about that. But what they can do is go out and win every game they play and try to look good doing it, because I think we're getting into that point now where eye test is going to matter here for Ohio State, because they haven't played as many games as some of these other schools. They do need to go out and look good playing the next few weeks, because they really need the committee to stay with its belief that it has right now, that it's one of the 4 best teams in the country. And that's what the committee thinks right now. But I do think it's a tenuous situation just because Ohio State hasn't played that many games.
It's funny. We joked, Casey, I'll let you get in after this, but we joked in the preseason about 2-0 Ohio State and 3-0 Clemson in the playoff. But half of that may be true, right? May end up not 3-0, but it could be 6-0, for example, Ohio State. So, Casey, I know you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I listened to your podcast today, the Real Pod Wednesdays, on your 11warriors.com site. And one thing that really stuck out to me pretty early on in the show was, and this is Ohio State related, but not really, was that you said it was a great point on it being a virus, right? And that there's a narrative going around that if your team has an outbreak, that you've all of a sudden you're not dealing with this well, and you're doing something wrong. Can you just expound on that? You can regurgitate it just for our audience, because I thought it was really well said.
Yeah, I think it's just important for us to remember that this is a pandemic, and this is something that's out of everyone's control. And you can do everything right to try to avoid this pandemic, and your team can still get affected by it. Anybody can get affected by it, whether you're a football player or you're just one of us. Anybody can be affected by this. So I think, you get all these narratives in the midst of a football season that, if a team can't play, then they've done something wrong, and then you start getting into these real narratives of like, they don't want to play, they're trying to get out of playing. And that, that's where I think it really it starts going way too far, because it's like, we got to not lose sight of the fact that this is a pandemic going on. I truly believe that all the players on these teams want to play. They would not be making these sacrifices that they have made to be able to play this season if they didn't want to play every game they possibly can. But you have decision makers at universities that need to look at the situation and say, we've got a certain number of cases. It's just not safe for us to continue with our season right now. And I think, in Ohio State's case, I think they really made a smart decision by not playing last week, because I think if they had, there'd be a better chance they wouldn't be playing this week. I think they really needed to just put a curb to things when they did. And I think that was the smart decision. And hopefully things will go smoothly the rest of the year. But the reality is, you just don't know at any time. Until last Wednesday, there had been no inkling of any issues at Ohio State. And then all of a sudden it just pops up. So it can change just like that when we're in the middle of a pandemic. And I think it's important that we just never forget that.
Dan Hope of 11 Warriors .com and Ohio State website is our guest tonight. It's kind of ironic, Dan. You were talking about decisions made by the administrators, and of course the Big Ten decided to start later than the ACC and the SEC. And the theory was that would in some way help, but now they're in the middle of the season. They left themselves no wiggle room. Also saw that on your website. Several commenters mentioned that. No wiggle room, no open dates, nothing. So in a way, it was the best decision. I wouldn't disagree with that. I don't know all the particulars, not a doctor, but it really put Ohio State and everybody in the Big Ten in a bind now that there's been an outbreak. I want to say later in the season, but in the middle of the season for the Big Ten, later in the season for the ACC and SEC.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I said this on my podcast as well, that, there's a reason why Ohio State waited until 10 o'clock on Friday night to cancel this thing. And that's because they know they need to play every game they can. So they waited until the absolute last minute to make that decision because they desperately wanted to play that game. But, I mean, you're right. I mean, what the Big Ten did to try to play 8 games in 8 weeks, I tried to be optimistic going in, but I kind of knew in the back of my mind that these things were going to happen because, again, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And, I think, the Big Ten's, the way they looked at it is it just wasn't going to be safe to play until they had the daily testing protocol in place. But the idea that they tried to sell at the beginning, they had hoped that daily testing would prevent games from being canceled. That hasn't happened. I mean, really, the Big Ten's cancellation rates have been pretty similar to everyone else. So, it really, by starting the season later, people are going to be arguing about this for years, but it definitely did put these teams in a tough spot. No doubt about that.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Barry Alvarez come out too and talk about the athletic directors in the Big Ten that they may have to switch up their thinking going forward so that it helps the conference and gets a team like Ohio State, make sure that they have a good opportunity. But I did really like what you said about not as a Clemson fan, but as a sports fan and a college football fan, how they are number 4. So it's going to take something really special, maybe a Florida beating Alabama to have somebody jump them.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be really interesting to see, just what the committee decides here. Especially if Ohio State has another game canceled, like Ben what. It's gonna be a fascinating decision and see, if the Big Ten changes things. I'm not really sure the Big Ten should make that change at this point because we're so close to the end of the season. But at the same time, I think a lot of people are looking at what the ACC just did and changing things up, and people are saying, if you're the Big Ten, it benefits you if Ohio State gets in. So if the Big Ten needs to change the rules to get Ohio State in, to me, I'm kind of trying to say, like, okay, you're like, I know why you want it as Ohio State fans, but you see enough national people who are kind of getting on that train too and just saying, hey, I mean, it's 2020, you got to do what you got to do.
The other thing, and we'll let you go, we know you're busy, but the other thing that came up, and I didn't even realize this today, in the whole talk about the A&M, like I said, the commenters on your website, not A&M fans for sure. A&M is getting a lot of love for really looks pretty mediocre. I mean, I watched a good bit of the LSU game last week. They scored 20 points, and I don't even know how much of that was scored by the offense against a defense that regularly has been giving up 40 and 50 all season. Now, on the other hand, they held LSU to 7, but not the same quarterback. But my point is, and then they barely skipped by Vanderbilt. A&M is getting a lot of love for not a lot. What's your take on that as a semi-objective football analyst?
Well, I think the thing that potentially helps Ohio State here in not playing as many games is I just don't think there's that many candidates to really jump them. Like you said, if a Texas A&M, like if Ohio State wins out, should Texas A&M jump Ohio State? Will it? I don't know. To me, I look at it, I think the worst case scenario for Ohio State is if Florida beats Alabama. Because I think if Florida beats Alabama and Clemson beats Notre Dame, then you have that possibility. Those could be your 4 teams all with 1 loss. And I think there's a chance Ohio State gets left out in that scenario. Other than that scenario, I still think the odds favor Ohio State here, but it definitely favors them more if you play three games, and obviously you got to win them all. I mean, if Ohio State loses, they're out. But, I think the more games Ohio State plays, the better. But I don't know that I see another team outside of that group, there's going to be people making the case for Cincinnati, and I don't even disagree with that case, but I just don't see the committee doing that, because at the end of the day, it's going to say we got to put 4 teams in this thing that we think have the best chance to actually compete and have a chance to win a championship. And I think right now, to me, I agree that Ohio State is one of those teams, but I do think there's a scenario there where, if Florida was to get its way into the top 4, that could potentially knock Ohio State out.
I don't think that's going to happen, but you're
right. I don't
right.
really think so either, but it's one of those scenarios that's out there.
Absolutely.
So I guess that means you're pulling for Notre Dame in the ACC championship game.
No, I'm like I said, I'm objective, so I'm not pulling for anybody here. Just analyzing the way the situation could play out.
I just want a good game. But Dan, we know you're busy. Thank you for your time. And we want to reserve some time in the spring around the NFL draft.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate you.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, and then definitely even as an Ohio State person, his website is great. It really is. And he does a lot of good stuff. It's very Ohio State centric, but it still has some actually really, really, really good articles. I read a few today to kind of get ready. So 11warriors.com. Dan Hope, he's very good to us, and we appreciate him for coming on.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. Like I said, I met him when he worked with Brandon at orangeandwhite.com. It's hard to keep up with all the websites, but orangeandwhite.com. So, hey, I only got one more rant, and I want to bring Zach Locks Parker in for this rant. See, there he is.
What's happening?
Meet Mr. First Place, Zach Locks, Dr. Locks Parker. Okay, one more rant before we get to last week. Does a team in this universe get more love for losing games than North Carolina? Now, we know what happened last year when ABC almost beat Clemson, right? They're still talking about it a year later. And then they play Notre Dame, had a good first 12 minutes. But after those 12 minutes, they scored 3 points, got outscored 24-3 after those first 12 minutes, and just got their soul crushed by Notre Dame. And I flip on this the next day, I'm watching some show or listening to some show, and they're not talking about Notre Dame. They're talking about, well, they were in a way, but they were talking about how Notre Dame stopped this explosive, dynamic, UNC offense that scored 3 points in 48 minutes. By the way, they lost by 2 touchdowns at home, and they went up 2 spots in the rankings. What the heck is up with this?
Well, shouldn't Clemson then be number 1?
Yeah, no doubt.
I just want to expound on that a little bit. That's my word tonight. I've said it now twice. This is courtesy of Nelson Wilhite, who is our stats and information. The Big 12 also had a couple huge jumps. Iowa State, at least they won, right? But it was a very close game. They jumped, 4 spots. And Oklahoma State beat Texas Tech, and they jumped 8 spots. So that's big jumps for these Big 12. I don't know what the heck is going on with these rankings, man. I've told you this from the start. I'm not sure those 75 old men in the room know what's going on either. So it's crazy.
I think they're just picking names out of a hat, right?
I guess after a certain point, you might be able to this year. I think, after you get to 6 or 7, after that, it's like, oh, okay, who's the best 1-loss team, 2-loss team, 3-loss team? Rank them.
What you got, Zach?
I think after the top 10, it's just a crapshoot. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of thought even put into it, because, I mean, maybe in other years, yes, but this year it's hard enough alone with just the top 10. I mean, forget about the 15 after that to make 25. That's pretty difficult to try and rank. And like you said, there's a lot of anomalies like Nelson pointed out too. So I think there's also a lot of respect given, honestly, to your favorite, Marty, Mac Brown. I think there is.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. I guess it just goes back to his Texas time. I don't know that he's done that great of a job at North Carolina. I mean, it's a basketball school all of a sudden made it into a football school, but I think that's where the respect's at. And I also think Notre Dame's getting a lot of respect too after they beat Clemson, and they're rolling, and they are, they ran away in that second half. So that also drug North Carolina up with them with that victory.
Yeah, it is. I think a large part of it is Mac Brown. He's everybody's friend, right? Everybody loves Mac Brown. and he was at North Carolina, then came to Texas, and he was a glide hander and everything, back and a back patter, man. And so yeah, and then he went to ESPN, right? And he made friends there, and he probably smoozed with the committee members then. And he's old Mac Brown now, and you can't say anything bad about him. And he had the saying at Texas. Well, he had a lot of sayings at Texas, but one that stuck in my mind last Friday was, he actually said this after a Texas loss, by the way. We didn't lose. We just ran out of time. I think I've texted that to one of you guys, or maybe both of you, Friday, but he did. That's his thing. We didn't lose the game. We just ran out of time. We were coming back. We were going to win. We just ran out of time. We didn't lose. But I can't believe that they keep getting all this love for losing. They're really not that good. I mean, they weren't last year either. They ended up like 8-4, 7-5 or something.
Well, I think it also comes into play because they've really pumped them up preseason. Now, I know this is the committee and this isn't ESPN, but they really pumped him up preseason. They really, really pumped up Sam Howell because they were desperate for somebody in the conference to battle Trevor Lawrence to be in the top quarterback in the conference. And Sam Howell was great in his own right. He's great. He's going to be a top pick probably in the draft when his time comes. However, he's not Trevor Lawrence, and he's probably not even DJ Uiagalelei, but he's a good quarterback, and they have a great running game. And what happens when you play Notre Dame? Notre Dame is going to stop your run. Yep. Guess what? North Carolina is as good as Sam Howell is and as good as he is a thrower. They want to run the football, and Notre Dame stopped them after they started doing after they stopped doing their gadget plays in the first half and scoring and having success and going back to their base offense. They were stuffed and they couldn't do anything. So, and those gadgets were already out the window, right? They couldn't come back to them. So, I don't know why they're getting a lot of love. I think there was just a lot of press on them preseason to get them to be the team that's going to battle Clemson. But obviously, as we see, it's Notre Dame.
They want to validate their own preseason thoughts. I said that was my last rant. This isn't really a rant, but Heisman voting. I did some research, guys. I broke my own rule. But because I've been hearing all this about Kyle Pitts. Do you know how many catches Kyle Pitts has this year? Just take a guess. Seems like about 500, right?
38.
A whole lot lower, do you think? Yeah, probably around 45.
29.
And how many?
How many receiving yards Kyle Pitts has this season?
No.
513. And that's who everybody's pushing for the Heisman. Now, he does have 174 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns. But let me just run off those numbers. Let's think about this. He's got 29 catches, 513 yards. 8 of those catches, which by my calculation is roughly 30%, 28 to 30% of them, were in the first game against the greatest defense in the world, Mississippi.
That's right.
170 of those 513 yards, 1/3, were against the Mississippi defense. 4 of those touchdowns, 36% of them, were in the first game against Mississippi defense. This is the guy we're saying is the greatest player in the world. Great player, going to be probably a superstar in the NFL. He's got 29 catches for 513 yards, and we're acting like he's freaking, I don't know, who's the best tight end ever,
Gronk.
Yeah, you're acting like he's Rob Gronkowski. The guy, he missed a couple games, I think, right? 2, I think. And that hurts him. But he's played 6 games. So he's averaging less than 5 yards a catch, about 90 yards, less than 90 yards a game against, the other defense where he had a big game. One 100-yard game. Hadn't had one since that first game. He had a big day, 3 touchdowns against Kentucky. So 7 of his 11 touchdowns have come against Mississippi and Kentucky. There's your Heisman Trophy winner.
You know what stat I saw that was really pretty funny was that not funny because I was like, oh my God, it's so impressive. But then you just put it into perspective. He has no drops on the season. But at 29, the sample size really isn't that big for somebody that you anticipate to have 60 catches, 100 catches, whatever. But he's got 29 catches, no drops, which I was like, wow, that's awesome. They throw to him all the time. No, 29 times.
You want somebody who should win the Heisman Trophy? He plays at Alabama. He has 72 catches for 1,074 yards and 12 touchdowns. Yeah. Devontae Smith.
That guy's a stud.
Yeah.
Biletnikoff, I mean, that's the best thing he's going to get, right? It's going to be a quarterback award again, whether it's Mac Jones or Kyle Trask or Trevor Lawrence or, I don't know, Justin Fields. But
well, that's why I put this on the agenda, because I want to talk about it. If there's going to be a year where it's not a quarterback, I think it could be this year. They're pushing these guys. They're pushing these two receivers. They're now this narrative out there, which is true, by the way, that it's a wide receivers game, right? It's turned from, used to be running backs, and then it's going to quarterbacks, and now everybody's looking at the wide receivers, because sure, the quarterback throws the pass, but the wide receiver is the one in the end zone, the one doing the dance, the one racking up the 1,000 yards, except for Kyle Pitts, by the way. But anyway, I think this is a chance. This is the year that it may be someone other than a quarterback. What do you guys think? Locks, what's up?
It could be. Now that you're making the point, but it is strange, though. I'm really surprised at the stats that you pulled up on Pitts, but they do just toot his horn, don't they? He stands out in a crowd. He's so big, and he's a highlight reel. Every time he catches it, he gets massive publicity. So I like him. I mean, he's got the NFL body type. I'm sure they're just crawling all over themselves to get him in the NFL. But is he a junior this year? I'm not even sure myself.
I don't know.
He's gone.
Yeah. So he's going. So yeah,
it doesn't matter.
That's where that's going too. So it's just a prototype that they're looking for. But then that's why he's getting all the smoke on ESPN. So he's exciting to watch. I mean, I like Kyle Trask myself too. He can sling the ball, so he's picking up a little steam himself. But I mean, obviously, all love for my guy up here, Trevor Lawrence. So he deserves it. And I don't know if he'll get it. Who knows how it'll go? We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he'll get it either. And I love Kyle Pitts. I think he's fantastic. Heck, he took a slant over the middle this past weekend and outran a DB like it was nothing. And you don't expect a guy at 6'7", 200 and whatever pounds to outrun a DB. And like our friend Ryan Lawrence here said, that last year they pushed Chase Young. Do you remember him? Didn't think so. Yeah, I don't remember him at all. But they definitely did. So there is names every year that people are trying to push and at least get invited. Maybe it's an honor for somebody like Kyle Pitts to get invited there. Nelson Wilhite brought up the running back from Buffalo who scored 114 touchdowns this past weekend in
one game,
in one half. Why not? He's got the stats, right?
Ryan had a good point, because Chase Young, is that his name? I can't remember. I think he came in second, but it wasn't even close. It was the largest victory margin ever, I think, last year. But Chase Young came in second. And Ryan's
chop and beef joke. Ryan actually helps us on the chop and beef show as well. So he's a friend from Clemson and classmate of Locks and I.
Oh, cool. Welcome in, Ryan. Let's see. Any other rants? No, let's do a little quick weekend review. The Tigers came out focused, right? 31 points in the first quarter, most ever. Looked spectacular. And then went to sleep at second quarter and halftime and started third quarter in a nap, in a coma before they, the game was over, but just lost it a little bit there, which is really unusual for a Dabo team. They're even talking about on the broadcast, the last, middle eight, the last four of the first half, first four of the second half. Didn't look so good, fellas. What's your takeaways from Saturday's game? Beef, you go up first.
Yeah, it's one of these things we're nitpicking, right? We talked about this a few weeks ago, how you're up 31-0 and you're complaining, but we've been saying it forever. I'm a beating a dead horse here, but we got to have that killer instinct. And I actually yelled the other day, and I'm not a yeller anymore. At home anyway. I just sit and watch. My stepson yells, but I just usually sit and watch now and just shake my head. But I yelled the other day, and my wife looked at my little guy and was like, "Daddy's yelling at the screen." And yes, I was. I said, "Put the freaking foot on the throat." And we won't do it. I don't understand. The running game, which we've been all over the offensive line all year long. I know they were trying to stop the run, right? And the passing game was working, and Cornell Powell was fantastic, and Amari Rodgers was very good. But ETN was getting 8 yards a carry. He ended up with like 54 yards or something like that. Why not feed the beast? Lynn J. Dixon looked fantastic. That was the best game that he's had all year long. He actually looked healthy. He looked like he was running the ball. And then go to Ches Malusi, who was fantastic as well. So yes, we can be a little nitpicky, and we did get to a point in the third quarter where who'd we play? They scored, and that's I don't even know anymore. Pittsburgh scored, and it came into a 3-score game, and I revert back to pessimistic Clemson fan going, oh crap, they stop us again. They score. Now this is a game. So, yes, the game was over. I understand that. But me reverting back to 1995 Clemson guy, it wasn't good. And I think we're fine. I think we're going to be okay. We're going to win by 114 this weekend and hopefully go into North Carolina healthy. That's and North Charlotte healthy and beat, hopefully, a Notre Dame team.
Hey, Zach, I don't know how you follow up the Father of the Year there by telling the 2-year-old to
I didn't curse, though, so that's Father of the Year material.
step on their throat. What was your takeaway from Saturday?
They about lulled me to sleep, too. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse when you score 31 points in the first quarter, but I think it has something to do with losing one of your offensive coordinators too. You know, it's a little different on the play calling, I think, from last year too. It probably doesn't have someone, Jeff Scott's not there to collab with, maybe to help this out. But are they saving something? Hopefully, I don't know. I mean, why? If you are, but I agree with Beef. Just step on their throat, just end this thing. Bring in all the backups then. But you can't do it early. You got to actually have a dominant lead. I think. Especially this time of the year, you got to have everybody playing, especially the starters, so you have some reps coming in for the ending here. But yeah, it just was kind of like dragging on. And again, like you guys were saying earlier, just all the the guys calling all the penalties and just the replays. It had to suck the life out of the team too, Yeah. So it was a long game, and I'm not looking forward to a 7:30 start this weekend because it's gonna go forever.
So when I looked at that second series and I saw Will Sweeney on the boundary, I was like, "What are we doing?" No offense to him. I love him.
How can he take that long?
He's great in the third quarter, receiving punts and catching his little, end around. I love him. He's a Tiger, coach's son, whatever. But what are we doing? What are we doing? I want it. That's another one. I screamed twice, and you got both of them here on the show. What are we doing? They had a short drive. Put Cornell back in. Put Amari back in. I was playing wide receiver. It was brutal.
Marty, there's so many sound bites right here. You got to mark this.
Oh, don't you guys worry. We have sound bites coming up. You made me forget. I was going to make an executive decision and cut out the rest of the agenda, and because I had something brilliant I was going to say. Of course, it slips away, and I'm stuck talking about Florida State didn't play again. And Virginia got semi-hold in Tallahassee last week, so they know how it feels. I mean, have they just, like, as Nelson would tell us, have they opted out? Has Florida State just said no? And then the ACC said, "Oh yeah, you're going to play again. We're going to set you up with some games in December, fellas." What's going on at Florida State, Zach?
I'm happy the ACC actually put their foot down because it feels like the white flag is just they're like, nah. All like I said, the opt-outs, the coach just doesn't seem like he's into it. They're just, they're practicing. That's all they're doing. So yeah, like I said, it's good that the ACC actually did something because that's very un-ACC like, or even just a conference leadership like for many conferences. So yeah, I'm glad they're going to have to play, but they're not going to play Clemson. I kind of wish they were, but I like that there is going to be a bye week before the championship game. I think that's smart, like you said earlier in the show. Let both Notre Dame and Clemson have the bye week, so they're rested and put a good product out there for the nation to see. So, but Florida State definitely, they deserve to have to play. So take that.
Who is Florida State playing this week? In the middle of the week, they were playing Miami, or Duke was playing Miami. Miami, play Florida State. Now they switched it, and Duke's playing again. But like Nelson said on the bottom of the screen, they better buy travel insurance because I think they do.
I think they play next week, Florida State. I think they play next week. I could be totally wrong because how this thing goes this year, and it might change by next week, right? Who knows? They could have somebody else. All right, fellas, let's get to the best part of the show, my most fun part. But this week, I lost the lead for the first time since this thing has started. I graciously called Mr. Zach Locks Parker. I offered congratulations, but I told Zach,
The back of the hand.
this thing is not over. This thing is not over. I asked, and you said you wanted to keep playing as long as we could. This thing's not over. But Casey, I don't know how well you know Zach, because I recorded our phone call, and here's what Zach said in response to me saying this thing was
Oh,
not.
kiss your boots if you can do it. But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here. And
Pooler, Georgia.
I'm the man. Man! Woo!
Did he act like that when you guys were at Clemson together?
That was a lot of blue cans. He used to call me from the middle aisle of Walmart back in the day. So yeah, he acted.
True story.
That sounded just like.
He's the man. And I don't know what happened to his voice in there when he said Pooler, Georgia. It changed a little bit. I'm not
He gets
quite
serious
sure.
about his hometown. Yeah, he gets serious.
Oh, Pooler, Georgia. Okay, here we go. Now, Dr. Locks, your one fan is here.
There he is. My man.
All right, picks this week. Now, you guys think I screwed this up on the weeks where it's been the same order for 14 in a row?
For 14 in a row.
All right, our first game, but we always know who's first off the tee.
You know who goes first.
First up, Louisiana is at Appalachian State. They're getting 2.5 points. Billy Napier's boy traveled to the mountains. Beef, who you got?
I'm going with Louisiana here. I don't know why. They lost their luster after beating Iowa State, apparently a really pretty good Iowa State team. I just think, I know it's a distance. I know it's Sun Belt, Fun Belt, but I think Louisiana wins here. I think they win outright.
All right. Yep, me too. I'm taking Louisiana. I'm going with the underdog. Not much to say there. I think they're a good team. I think they're solid. They're well coached and a solid team. And App State, is good, but they kind of caved against Coastal at the end. So I'm going to go with Billy Napier and the boys. Mr. First Place, who you got?
All right, here's where the separation starts. I got App State.
The separation. Okay.
Really
right.
good analysis.
I was just going to say that was well thought out.
Louisiana is 0-8 all time versus App State. So that's my little tidbit I'll throw in there. I think App State has a better defense coming off the game versus Coastal. They still got something to prove. They may not be going to the championship, but they'll be in at the fight. So I like them here.
All right. Liberty getting 10.5 at Coastal. Now, the Liberty quarterback has COVID apparently. So this went from 6.5 to 10.5, and I wish Casey and I would have got that news a little bit earlier, but that's beside the point. So Liberty is getting 10.5 at Coastal. It is, what do you call that thing? Game day is there in Conway. Who you got? Zach Locks Parker.
I'm kind of wishy-washy on this one. The COVID for the quarterback is a rough go for me here too. Coastal 7-2 against the spread. Liberty 8-2 against the spread this year. That's pretty good records, real solid records actually. I think Coastal has a better defense, but Liberty's played a tougher schedule. So I think the quarterback being out is going to hurt. I hate the 10.5 though. God, I'm going to go with Liberty. I got Liberty circled here. I think it's going to be a tight game.
Give him Liberty or give him Daft Beef. Who you got?
I'm going with Coastal Carolina. I just think C.J. Marable and Nelson Wilhite will carry this team right to the victory this weekend.
Okay, I'm going with Liberty also. So Zach and I are both on Liberty. I'm a little worried about not having the superstar quarterback in there, but 10.5's a good number, and I think Liberty's more than just a quarterback, and they'll find a way, much like the Ravens did today, right? The Ravens had Robert
RG3.
RG3, Robert Griffin III, quarterback, and there was no way they're going to win. They only lost by 5 to an undefeated Pittsburgh team. Next game up, West Virginia is getting 7. They're playing at everybody's favorite team, Iowa State. I'm first in this one. This was tough. I was hoping for 7.5 or 6.5, but it's right on 7, which is, kind of like Iowa State's favorite number to win or lose by, 7 or 3. It is a tough one, but I'm going to go with West Virginia. Locks, who you got?
West Virginia's won the last 2 games they played versus Iowa State. I saw that. And they've actually won by an average of 20 points. Iowa State obviously is on a nice roll this year. But I think Iowa State will win the game, but I just don't think they're going to cover the 7 points. I think it's going to be a tight one. This might be a really good one to watch. So tune in for this one. I got West Virginia.
West Virginia, Beef.
I'm agreeing with Locks. He's in first place now. That's I don't know the analysis. I like Brock Purdy. I really do as a quarterback. I don't know. I just feel like this 7-point Iowa State seems to squeak by. 7 points, like you said, I wish it was 7.5 or 6.5 so that we could really know for sure, especially with my track record. I would absolutely nail this pick, but I'm still going West Virginia.
Okay, next up, Texas A&M is getting 7 points at Auburn. Now, this was one that was 6.5 for all week, it seemed like, and then I checked it the last time today, and it went up to 7. Who is first on this one? This would be Mr. Beef. Who you got? A&M, your pick to win the SEC West, or Auburn?
Well, I do have to tell you, you've been right on the schedule. So you've been really good at going on the order. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that.
It helps when you're sober and you write it out.
I'm going to stick with, I've wrote them all year long, right? Texas A&M has been my darling. They looked horrendous, like you spoke earlier to Dan Hope last week. I was not impressed with them at all. But then they can come out, Kellen Mond, he can come out this week and look like Patrick Mahomes. So I think they beat Auburn and Kevin Steele this week significantly.
Okay, I was going to take Auburn when it was 6.5, and it got to 7, so it made me wonder and rethink it. And unfortunately, I did some reading, and I just don't think Texas A&M is that good. I don't think they're prepared for Auburn. I'm going to take Auburn. I might even sprinkle some on the little money line here. I think Auburn will upset Texas A&M this weekend. I'm taking the Auburn Tigers. Zach Locks Parker.
Very nice. Going all in on Auburn. I think Bo Nix is trash. I'm just going to throw that out there. It hasn't progressed at all. Had like one good game, I think, this year. They really had high hopes for him, but I just don't think he's that good. Auburn's actually beat A&M the last 3 times they played, which surprised me when I saw that. But Auburn gives up a whole pile of yards, 162 yards rushing a game. And there's a little running back playing for Texas A&M with the last name of Spiller. So he's pretty good. So was the Clemson Spiller too. I'm going to take Texas A&M.
All right. Did you guys see the sign last week that said, I think it was something like, Bo Nix, it should be throws picks or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was something like that. Clemson is giving 22.5 at Virginia Tech. Saturday night in Blacksburg ain't what it used to be, but it's going to be cold. Nelson's pointing out that it's going to be cold like Saturday night in December, and Clemson isn't cold, right? It's going to be cold there in Blacksburg. Locks, you're up first.
Yeah, that's why I got my my hat on. 41 degrees is high in Blacksburg. Supposed to be a good chance of rain too. I think that's more earlier in the day, but it'll be a little chilly out there for the guys. There's a common opponent in these two teams. I don't know if you guys saw this stat. Pittsburgh. Clemson beat them 52-17. Virginia Tech lost to Pittsburgh 47-14. I like angry Clemson here. Statement, last chance to put a stamp on it for the full season. Angry
Clemson for Locks. Beef, you're up next. Who you got?
If we put Will Sweeney in the second series, I'm going to blow my gasket and my poor kid will be scarred for life. Clemson
like he's not already.
Clemson by $1 billion.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'll make this real simple. I learned my lesson last week. I might go down, but I'm going down picking Clemson. Okay. Unfortunately, we have to pick 2 alternate games. We might need 5 for all I know, the way things are going this week.
It is Wednesday.
Is TCU and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is giving TCU 5 points. I'm up first. I think the wrong team's favorite. I'm not a believer in Oklahoma State. I think TCU is going to upset them. I take TCU. TCU. Locks, you're up.
Wow, I like it. TCU is only 1-3 at home this year, which is kind of surprising. Don't have a home crowd to help you out at all, though, either. So Oklahoma State hasn't covered in their last 4 games, but I think they do here with a 2.5-point line. They're just a better team, better athletes on that team. So give me Oklahoma State.
Ooh, better athletes on Oklahoma State. Okay, Mr. Beef, who you got?
I was
You're
gonna say the same thing. Like Brandon Pilgrim said a couple weeks ago, sometimes it's about the Jimmies and the Joes and not necessarily the coaching, because I do like Gary Patterson a lot, but I think the Jimmies and the Joes favor Oklahoma State here. I'll take them.
sounds good. I hope you both lose. Indiana is getting 14 points at Wisconsin. Indiana, Zach Locks, Parker's favorite team. Michael Penix is not in the lineup and won't be. And that's worth about, I think, 4.5, because I think it was 9.5 at the beginning, and now it's up to 14. It went to 14.5. It's back down to 14 since Beef put $7,000 on this game. Just joking for the FBI out there. Beef, you're up first. Who you got? Indiana's getting 14.
What Wisconsin team is going to show up? Is the team that lost to Northwestern going to be there, or the team that looked unbeatable in their opener? I just think that's a big number. I'm going Indiana, even without Michael Penix Jr. I just think I don't know what they have behind them. I love their coach. I think he's fantastic. I'm going with Indiana and their culture over Wisconsin. Not necessarily to win, but that 14 points.
I wanted so much to go with Indiana here because I'm not really a believer in Wisconsin, but I think it's going to be close for half, and I think Wisconsin's just going to wear them down and trample them in the second half, and not, well, I say trample them, run the ball on them, on the Hoosiers in the second half, maybe win by 17. I'm taking Wisconsin. Mr. Locks.
I agree with both of your points on both sides, but I think Wisconsin's going to win. I love Indiana. I love their coach. You see that speech he made after, the last game. He's a great guy, and I hate that he lost the quarterback. He's playing great, and it's just too bad. But 14 is a big number, but I think you're just going to run him down and just bury him here in the second half. And Wisconsin, they're out to still show, hey, we had a chance this year. We just had so many games canceled, didn't qualify to even play in the Big Ten championship, unfortunately. But they're a pretty good team, I still think.
Yeah, I think they've got a chance to who knows Indiana's where their mind's at after losing Penix. So, okay, let me run this down. Make sure if I got the order right, it's a miracle. Let's see if I got them written down. All right. Beef has Louisiana, Coastal, West Virginia, Texas A&M, Clemson, Oklahoma State, and Indiana.
Oh my God.
I took Louisiana, Liberty, West Virginia, Auburn, Clemson, TCU, and Wisconsin. First place locks took App State, Liberty, West Virginia, Texas A&M, Clemson, Oklahoma State, and Wisconsin. All that right, folks?
That's right.
Okay. Every except one visiting team. No, you got it right. I took all the away teams except Coastal.
Oh, well, before we get out, don't worry. There's not much at stake for you, Casey. It's either last place or laster, as the kids say. Before we get out of here, I worked so hard on this. Let's play the game.
Kiss your boots if you can do it. But to be the man, you got to beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here. And
Pooler, Georgia.
I'm the man. Man! Woo!
All right. I worked hard. That took me somewhere around 45 seconds to a minute, and I want complete credit for it. So I think it's very important. I'm trying to find the exit music here, and I don't know, probably deleted it as I was praising myself. I was praising myself, and I probably deleted the exit. That's kind of interesting. Okay.
Well, I'll do the outro if you want, for you. Thanks to Zach Locks Parker for joining us, Nelson Wilhite for helping us out on all of our websites and keeping me in the know for having some sort of knowledge on this show. Everyone on the Seldom Used Reserve page, everyone on the discussion board page, Sluggo Podcast, the guys from Chop and Beef. Oh, wait, that's Locks and I. And everyone who listens, likes, and shares our show. And also a special thanks to Dan Hope from the 11warriors.com who came on for a little bit tonight to piss off fellow Tiger fans.
Yes. Great job, Casey. Everybody who contributed to the veterans, thank you. The check's in the mail. Zach Locks Parker, congrats on being in first place.
For 1 week at least.
See you guys next week.
Thanks.
See you guys.
I think that sounds pretty good.